Okay. So Phil, can you hear me?
Yeah, we're going live. So you can start.
We are live. Okay. Okay. So welcome everyone. Good evening and welcome to this 2022 behavior marathon. So we are here with our friends from Hubbub, which we thank in advance for coming and helping us organizing this nice event. If you are following BEET, it's some years now that we are running behavioral marathon, but this year is the first time that we decided to open this publicly and also inviting other universities. We have some groups, in fact, that will present from University of Warwick and some groups here instead from UCL. So the plan of the days is, of course, of the evening, is of course having a few words, initial presentation from Hubbub, then our 5 presentations from students on the topics that we need to tackle today. And we will proceed with discussing like the presentations within the panel and then announcing the winning group. So thank you very much, and we can start perhaps with a few words from our friends from Hubbub. I will pass the microphone. Yeah, the camera is there, just discovered.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
sorry, it's
tiny.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't break close, but I don't think so.
I might just hold it actually. Hello. Hi everyone and everyone else. I'm Abby and this is Monica and Holly. So yeah, first a bit about Hubbub. Can I take my mask off?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a bit about Hubbub. We are we're an environmental charity based in Somerset House, so just sort of not too far from here. And we've been going for 6 years now. So we run behaviour change campaigns. So what does that mean? It's basically campaigns to help people make small changes in their life that can have sort of a positive environmental impact. And to do this, our campaigns can broadly fall into a series of hubs. So they are based around things that matter to us and things that we do every day, like the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the homes that we live in, and also the communities that we're part of. So the idea behind our campaigns is that they're relevant. They're things that we might be wanting to do anyway. So live sort of healthier lives, more connected lives with our neighbours and in our community. But also focus a lot on helping you to save money and just feel a bit more empowered with the choices that you're making. So yeah, what else to say? I mean, we, like I said, we do a lot of kind of experimenting with our campaigns. So we're often trialing things out, testing new ideas and campaigns with a smaller size audience, and then really learning from that, like failing fast and then scaling the ideas that work. And I'm really, really excited to be here today and see some of your ideas. So thanks so much for inviting us. I'm going to pass over to Holly to talk a bit more about the brief and all that.
Hello, Tiny Mike. Yeah, so we're really excited to be here. This is my 2nd year doing this hackathon with Dr. Lottie. And it was great that last year we had some amazing ideas, and it was very funny that some of the ideas that your students came up with were pretty much lined up with projects that we actually carried out on the ground that we'd pre-designed. But actually, the 3 briefs that you were given are projects that we are still designing. So there is a lot of scope for influencing these with your designs and ideas. So yeah, we're really excited to see what we come up with. And this is one of our design teams. So I'm a project manager. I do a lot of on the ground stuff with community groups and getting stuff organized, but Monica's the real kind of design brains behind Hubbub. So a few quick words about design and how it's important to us.
Thanks, Holly. Oh, hello. Yeah, I mean, what is there left to say? We're just really excited to see what you guys come up with, and kind of, yeah, be inspired by you as well. Yeah, design is really important in every sense to all our campaigns. We love really experimental things and that we haven't tried before. Yeah, and look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. Really excited.
Great.
And thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Can we briefly check the three topics together, just to like for the public out there? They're this one, right? So the first one is basically about like the kind of eating behaviors, right? So I try to reduce meat consumption. Is there something specific that I missed? Like young men? Is it? Are we targeting young men?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is one of the potential topics. And then the second, what is about the second?
It's all about
like
fuel and rising energy costs. Again, looking at young men as a key audience to kind of engage with, but thinking ahead to the likely rising energy prices that are going to happen come April and the energy price cap changes. Yeah, so yeah, this one's basically all about energy, as you can see from the slides.
Fantastic. And we just close with the third one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with this one, we know that clothes have a huge carbon impact, huge carbon footprint, huge water footprint. And so fashion is an area of Hubbub that we're really looking to expand. And we're really interested to find out more about ways to avoid kind of clothing going to waste, and kind of behavior change around making use of what you have, swapping, renting before you buy. And so this one's all about costumes for students, and avoiding single-use costumes. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And fantastic. So the presentations we will see will be within these three topics. So we don't know what students have prepared, so let's see. And best of luck to everyone. So thank you so much. And we can start with group one, perhaps. You can sit like wherever you prefer, really. And I will leave the mic now. Stop sharing. Yeah. Hello, Lori. I can see you.
Hi, Lorenzo.
Hello, how are you?
We're all fine, thank you.
All fine. Great.
Yes.
So I'm starting with the first presentation now. And then if we can have a presentation from Warwick, and then we do another from UCL, etc., etc.
Yeah, that's fine.
Fantastic. Okay, great. We will start with the first presentation then. And here we are. And I pass you the microphone.
Welcome to a presentation about the cost of costumes, tackling post-consumer fashion waste using behavioral economics. Our presentation has the following structure. First, I'm going to describe briefly the impact of the fashion industry on the environment and the problem we focus on here, and also a broad solution to this issue. Then I'm going to describe the behavioral biases linked to fashion consumption, and therefore why rational and simple solutions cannot be implemented, but also how we can use these biases to promote change. Then I'm going to give 3 concrete examples of solutions for 3 specific situations, and then I'm going to conclude with some limitations. So the environmental damage of the fashion industry is a global problem, which led to generation to 4 to 5 billion tons of CO2 last year. And in the UK only, we have 30 kilograms of textile per person, which end up in landfills or end up being burned each year. So, of course, fast fashion encourages single use of clothing items and costumes, but here we want to focus on events and situations that by definition promote single use costumes or clothes. So these are events that happen only once a year and for which we want to have a different costume each year, or situations where using the same item of clothing 2 times is not socially accepted. So our solutions to the environmental problem linked to fast fashion are very straightforward. It's reuse and recycle. But how can we implement this? There are different dimensions of the customer perspective when making choices. These dimensions are social, affective, cognitive, behavioral, and sensory. But here we want to focus on the behavioral dimension, which can then alter those other dimensions. So behavioral biases or non-standard behaviors can lead to an inefficient use of costumes and fashion items. And some behavioral biases make it difficult to make people reuse or recycle. But at the same time, we can use some of these biases to push people towards more reuse and recycling. So our strategy is to use some behavioral biases to solve the problem linked to other biases. So I'm going to present now 3 situations that promote single-use costume and our concrete solution to each problem. So our solutions always focus on reusing and recycling in order to reduce both the environmental costs, but also the private costs of costumes. And for each situation, we use nudging to encourage reusing and recycling, and therefore change the status quo and make reuse and recycle the new standard. Our 3 strategies are rent, make, and reinterpret your costume. The first situation I want to talk about is Halloween. Here, our target audience are young people, potentially students. And we assume that these young people have accumulated many costumes over the years. And therefore, we propose our subscription model in the form of a platform where students can bring their old costumes. And for each costume brought, they get a discount on the renting of future costumes for future Halloweens. Here we use the behavioral biases of loss aversion because renting becomes more cheaper than buy a new costume every year. But also there have some limitations. There are some limitations, for example, loss aversion or projection bias. So the fact that we think that our preferences will remain the same in the future, this might hinder people from bringing the old costume to this platform. The second situation is World Book Day. Here, our target audience are children at school who are asked to come to school dressed as their favorite book character. And our solutions is a non-compulsory costumes workshop at school where children can make their own costume themselves using recycled material. For example, pieces of fabric, plastics, cans, or wood. So our goal is to change the status quo to make this costumes workshop the new standard. We use overconfidence, so the fact that children think that they can make their own costumes themselves, that's you, and also their creativity, but also social pressure and framing to make this workshop the new standard. However, there is also a risk that this social pressure and, for example, the fear of missing out or the status quo bias remain after our change, but also that this might make the change more difficult. The third and last situations I wanted to talk about is social media. We know that social media leads to social pressures on individuals to consume more fashion products, and that some individuals think that they can't post the same picture or different pictures with the same items of clothing many times on social media. So our solution is a social media competition with this title, reinterpret the same item of clothing in 3 different looks and post them on social media to win a prize. Again, we want to change the status quo and reduce social pressure and overconfidence. However, again, the status quo, the social pressure, or the use of heuristics to make decisions can make this change more difficult. So in conclusion, we have shown 3 examples of how behavioral solutions can direct consumers to reuse and recycle, and therefore lower the cost of costumes. Our 3 strategies are rent, make, reinterpret. Also, a byproduct of all these 3 solutions is community building. So every time by sharing clothing and costumes, we can really build a new community. However, there are some limitations to our solutions. The first one is that we focus only on the behavioral dimension of the consumer side, but we also know that a systemic change of both the production and consumption side is needed if we want to reduce the impact on climate change and the environment. So it would need supply chain and business model transformation, but both are against this profit maximization of firms in the fashion industry. Also, single-use consumption is not universal. So a study shows that women and university students consume less than the wider community, but also there are some social economic situations of individuals which influence their ability or willingness to reuse or recycle. But here we have just one solution for everyone. And our main limitation is probably that more sustainable behavior gives this moral license to consume more, which might be counterproductive. However, I want to say to conclude that we have designed our solutions to try to minimize these limitations and overcome these barriers. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the first group. Any questions? Thank you. Do we have any questions from here or Warwick? Yes. I can come.
Great. Oh, thank you. So regarding your last campaign about reinterpreting the same challenge 3 ways, I'd like to know, can we delve into that a bit more and how far you went with this idea? So you said reinterpret same item of clothing in 3 different looks and post them on social media to win a prize. From our perspective, did you come up with a hashtag? Which platforms would you use? Yeah, just a bit more about your strategy around this. It'd be interesting to know if you had a couple of minutes to devote to that.
1, 2.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the first idea we had to use Instagram because it's very popular by young people and students. And a hashtag was an idea we had, but we were also thinking of a filter, for example, or sticker, which might be put on the picture, and then this way it can be identified. And yeah, more on this idea of reinterpreting this item of clothing, we were really thinking of choose one item of clothing, like typical this black dress, right? Choose this one and show three looks just to show that it's possible and that it's something cool, actually. You have something to add?
Not really that. Well, thank you to all the group. That was great. Just a quick question from my side. Looking at the first one, so the Halloween, I didn't thought about this much, but is this like viable as a business, like economically? Would this work and why?
The inspiration for this idea was back in India. We have this fancy weddings where we generally buy clothes which we only use once, which cost us a fortune. So many companies had come up with this online platform where they would rent these costumes, and then people can rent these costumes and wear them for the weddings. So this is one of the ways this model inspired us to come up with the subscription model. So I guess this would be even a good business model, where people own clothes, and then they could give it to people and then get a discount on. Yeah.
Great, fantastic. So there is lots of basis on this idea as well.
Yeah.
So thanks so much. Great. So another applause for group one. Thank you. And now we have one group from Warwick instead. I will stop sharing.
Yeah, you wanna ask a question? Yeah. Sorry,
Yes.
Lorenzo, we have a question from a student.
Yes.
I think it is related to the presentation,
to the
right?
previous presentation.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
I just had a quick question. I found the solutions really interesting. I was wondering, considering the limitations, if there was any empirical evidence that you found where the limitations don't outweigh the pros that you presented in your solutions. Do you have any empirical evidence that says the solutions work?
We are waiting for the reply in a second.
Hi. Hi, thanks for your question. I'm gonna move over here.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we didn't find any empirical evidence because it seemed as though the studies in which behavioral changes lead to changes in other sort of spheres aren't really quantifiable because of the nature of how they all influence each other. So we couldn't find a way to measure, how to quantify it, I think. Is that fair enough?
And then just as an add-on to what Ned said, most of these studies were looking at recycling rather than reuse. And one particular study that we mentioned in the conclusion saying that recycling, as we say, is more sustainable, which is giving a moral license to people to consume more. So people are, in that way, we started using reuse rather than recycling. So we can be more sustainable in real sense rather than in a perceived sense. So yes, this what we looked at is one of its kind solutions, and then we did not have empirical evidence.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the reply. Thanks, and thanks for the question. Thank you. So yeah,
yeah, we have now a group from Warwick presenting. Yeah, that's fine.
That's okay.
Otherwise, they won't. Lorenzo, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so just let us know if at some point you don't hear any of us. Okay.
Yeah. Speak louder, perhaps, but yeah, we can hear you well.
Okay, great. I'm gonna share the slides. Which one are?
Second one.
Second one.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We can see it.
Is that
Yes.
okay?
Okay, thank you.
Hello. Good evening. We're a group from University of Warwick. My name is Iwe, and this is my team member from the team, Kavanagh. We're here to present a solution to the very similar problem as the one described before regarding the overconsumption of unsustainable fancy dress, especially during festives like Halloween, like Christmas, we wear jumpers, right?
Sorry to hold you. Is it possible that person get a bit closer to the microphone, please?
Check. Does it sound better?
Yeah, you're a little bit low.
Right. Should I use this instead? Hello, 1, 2. Good, thank you.
Much better, thank you.
No worries. So yeah, we'd like to start this presentation with a question, which is, where is your Halloween costume from last year now? If you take a quick 5 seconds to think about it, I see a lot of you giving me this very look of Harry Styles. Very confused and unsure, which is exactly where the pinpoint of the problem is, that we don't know where they went, and I can tell you where they went in the next slide. Here are some scary highlights of where our Halloween costumes went specifically. Investigation by the very company who is, hosting this competition, Hubbub, found that 83% of the material used was polluting oil-based plastic likely to end up in landfill. And we, as a country, consumers spend 510 million on Halloween costumes. 4-in-1 10 costumes were only worn once. Next thing you know, they end up in a landfill. 83% were polluting. You already figure out this is a very, very poor thing. On the right, there's another infographic that's also produced by Hubbub a few years ago, telling you a bit more about the damage this whole situation is doing to us as a society. Moving on, we're trying to identify first who are responsible for this massive problem we are facing at the moment. You see these two UCL students, they're obviously getting very, very concerned and self-conscious, with the student on the left in denim asking, "It cannot be all my fault, surely." The advisor kindly suggested to her, "No, they are responsible too. Please go to your lecture." So who's also responsible outside of students then? It's the fast fashion brands who has been campaigning at every single festive period to ask us to buy more, to ask us, last year you were a cat, this year you better be a spider. It's a vicious cycle that keeps going. So in our solution, we need retailers and students to work alongside each other, and Kavanagh will soon tell you how we're going to work with each party to make the future better.
Thank you for the introduction, Iwe. So let's start with the retail aspect. So our strategy is to use ASOS and specifically ASOS Marketplace. So the way we plan to do it is using the existing app that ASOS has to essentially allow consumers to take photos of existing costumes. So as you can see on the left-hand side, they will have a scanning device that allows them to scan the costume. And essentially ASOS will then have a pricing strategy team that will give them a quote. This quote will let them know how much their costume is valued at. And then eventually they will give them a returns label. Once both parties agree to the price, they will get given a returns label so that the consumer doesn't have to spend on returns. It'll get shipped over to ASOS. ASOS will then have these costumes. And when we decided to do something a little bit more interesting, and so we thought about using the independent creators in the marketplace. So we plan to have ASOS redirect these costumes to marketplace and have these independent retailers sort of redesign them and make them sort of more innovative and change the styling of it. And so this will gives them a platform as well. So the independent designers then redesign these, put these on the marketplace, and then resell them as their own products. And ASOS, they take their profit by taking a share of these profits from the independent designers by providing the platform and the material. So we have 4 parties that essentially benefit from this scheme. So let's first address ASOS. So as mentioned previously, ASOS take a certain share of the profits. So we were thinking about 25%, but we haven't quite settled on that yet. It's just depending on, obviously, once we carry this out, then we can look at the empirical evidence. But for now, they'll take a share of the products, and they only have to invest in a small amount, which is this initial quote for the costumes. The second agent that essentially benefits is the independent designers, because they get given the material, so then they get to work with, and then they get to basically showcase their ability to show off create essentially a portfolio of work, to be like, look at all our designs, look at the potential we have in the market to create new clothes. And so it gives them, essentially maximizes their sales by giving them more of a target audience. And essentially, ideally, in the long term, they also gain a lot of profit as well. So the people we are hoping benefits the most are obviously consumers, because consumers have the benefit of being able to sell their products and getting profit from it. Yeah, however small it is, it's still some sort of incentive to reuse and recycle their costumes, but also they get the opportunity to be able to purchase other costumes at lower price. That's not just reused, but also redesigned. So it's a little bit more creative and depending on how the designers take it, it has a little flair to it. And then our fourth agent is hopefully government. So obviously, when this challenge was first presented to us, the idea was that we try to reduce carbon and water footprints. So ideally, by taking upon this sustainable project, we'll be able to reduce that because of reusing the material. So now on to the student aspect. So initially, we decided to use the behavioral insights tool, which was the barrier identification tool. And so from that, we identified 4 different points of concepts that we wanted to address. So the first one is awareness. So we decided that since we are targeting university students, we would use like a lot of their major users use social media and a lot of them watch YouTube. So we were planning to have ASOS carry out marketing campaigns on using YouTube ads. Because as we know, we're all obsessed with YouTube and we end up spending a lot of hours, or at least I do. And those ads go on for ages. So we thought it would be a great way of marketing and targeting that. So our second concept is prompts in the environment. So we plan to reach out to student unions that can prompt by educating executive members of societies about the awareness of secondhand refurbished costumes. So with societies, we feel like university students, because there's so many different societies available at every university, there is exposure to every student to join a society. And so we were hoping that as executive members and older peers, younger students, freshers, especially when they come into society, they'll look up to them and be like, okay, feel inspired to be like, okay, if my older is suggesting this, this is essentially creates a social norm, a certain environment where everyone feels like this is the place, this is a sort of normal thing to do. You buy secondhand products. And of course, as they're students, they all have a budget. Everyone wants to go out for food. Everyone wants to travel. So no one wants to be spending 40, 50 quid on costumes. So this is an ideal, essentially, opportunity for them. So as mentioned, opportunities. So we want to create opportunities in the environment. So ASOS can provide sponsorships with university societies to give offers and discounts for costumes on the condition they promote their brand. So a lot of societies in universities do this already, where they find a sponsor who will then give them a certain amount of money so that they can put towards running events and such. But in return, they then promote their company to other students and be like, okay, hey, have you checked out ASOS Marketplace? Have you seen his costumes? And this is especially useful because a lot of social nights out are fancy dress themed. So we're hoping to use that as our sort of a target. So when they do those nights out, rather than spending like I said, 50 quid, you can hopefully get a costume for much significantly cheaper. And our fourth concept is role models. So we obviously wanted someone who can push it. So just having executive members may not be enough. So we're hoping to have celebrities and influencers. So ASOS already currently have a large array of influencers who are pushing their normal products. But we also wanted to push the idea of sustainable fashion. So we looked at a few influencers. So Naina is the one on the left-hand side. As you can see, this is her Instagram account. And she has 117K followers. And believe it or not, she's actually a student at the University of Edinburgh. And so she works on promoting charity shop and secondhand fashion. And so we wanted to target these sort of influencers because they already have sort of a goal in mind that they want to promote sustainability. We also want to diversify and look at other influencers. So there was another influencer we considered, her name was Michaela. She's also an Edinburgh student studying medicine. And although her target audience, her target sort of market isn't sustainability, it's to do with climate activists, but since it's still environmental impact and helping towards a positive change, we wanted to diversify because we figured just focusing on sustainable people who are looking for sustainable products would already be looking for these alternatives. So we wanted to sort of expand and look at other audiences. Thank you very much. So as every concept and strategy has, there are limitations. So right now we're aiming to what we consider in behavioral science, soft paternalism. So the idea of incentivizing change in choice architect rather than replacing it. So rather than trying to force people to change the way they're doing it, we're adding the incentive or adding the concept of being able to sell your own products. So you will still be able to buy clothes and costumes at full prices, but you also have the opportunity to buy secondhand products and also sell your own secondhand products, so that you essentially minimize the cost as much as possible. So as I mentioned, the limitation is in the endowment effect. So for those of you who don't know what the endowment effect is, it's the idea that individuals overestimate or overvaluate goods because it belongs to them. And I think every one of us has been through this. So we treasure and prize something that has sentimental value when it doesn't actually. Or doesn't have as much. I should rephrase that, sorry. So we plan to address this through information and pricing sharing. So we plan to have ASOS send a message when the students receive their quote to let them know of the market price for their costume and let them know how valuable the item is. This is so that they understand that there may be a difference in what they may perceive the value and what the market says. So this follows the findings of Weaver and Frederick in their 2012 paper, who found that when a good is valued closely to the market price, it reduces and can also sometimes eliminate the endowment effect completely. So thank you for listening to our presentation. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you so much. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Fantastic. So thanks for the presentation. Do we have any question from UCL? Yes.
Hello. Thanks for your presentation. It was really interesting to hear your idea. A question I have is, obviously, a lot of young people are quite familiar with the idea of reselling their clothes. And so why might students choose to use the ASOS app instead of Vinted, Depop or eBay? And besides receiving money in return for sending their costume, what makes the ASOS experience unique?
That's a really good question, because I've been a huge fan of Depop for years, but the difference between our suggestion of this like reimagined version of ASOS Marketplace and Depop is that when you go on Depop, quite very few of the accounts that's actually selling on Depop are reimagining and restyling the clothes they have. It's often just vintage they get, or something came from their grandparents and they thought, this is great, we can sell this. But in our cases, we're benefiting the independent designers in the marketplace for them to have the chance to redesign and reimagine these clothes, but also for consumers to get things which are, they may be vintage, they may be second-handed, but they're brand new in the sense that they've been reimagined and restyled very recently by an upcoming designer, which is a feature that Depop does not yet have. And I don't see it has that anytime soon either. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much. That was really interesting. I'd like to delve further into your bullet point on prompts in the environment in student unions that would encourage the executive members of societies and also students. Did you have a thought about what those prompts would look like?
So I think the prompts were essentially just, well, sponsorship was one of them. So when they carry out their events, they'll have, when they do the posters and they advertise their event, they will have ASOS Marketplace on the top. And sorry, something we've completely forgot to mention is on the app, we plan to design, we were planning to have sort of a tab that says sort of a sustainable sort of menu in itself, so that you can click on this and have a look at it. But to actually answer your question, prompts in the environment, we're just hoping to sort of spread the message and get executive members to sort of word of mouth. I think it's probably one of the best tools, at least in society sense, because societies are so close and they're almost like a tight-knit family. Just basically having executive members talk to the society members and just sharing that information sort of spreads like wildfire. Like, you'll be surprised how much influence execs have on committee members and how much they can encourage.
Thank you very much. Thanks. And we have a last question just before the new presentation.
Really liked your presentation, the specifics as well. But a small doubt, just a small Google search showed me that the cost of the carbon footprint of e-commerce and e-fashion was at least 2 kgs of CO2. So have you compared what is the cost of the carbon footprint of transporting the old clothes, old costumes to that of getting new ones? Is it like whitewashing the carbon footprint? Are we trying to hide the carbon footprint, or are we trying to really reduce it?
I think that's a really good question. I bet like all of us have questioned before about, you know, the logistics behind all the e-commerce company. I think on one hand, we're all aware, you know, we heard horror stories of Amazon producing a lot of carbon footprints by using their gigantic, you know, trading system to push goods around the world. At the same time, I feel like it is also something that, you know, as a solution to this specific problem, we cannot jump out of, you know, our scope to worry about, you know, what exactly can we solve about the actual posting system. You know, I think that question is slightly out of scope, although we do notice one thing, which is that, you know, when you have a big company trying to sorting out all the posting routes and that, due to economics of scale, which I'm sure if we're all economics students here, we have a rough idea about it. Due to economics of scale, the cost is going to be lower when it's organized by one big company compared to everyone sending their stuff to each other individually, right? And that's all I can answer about your question, but that's really good. Thank you so much.
I mean, depending on, thank you. So I think that depending on, so if you think about Superga, for example, they have painters in a shop, right?
It's like getting
So
cars, but powered by coal and thermal power.
yeah, I mean, one exception would be if you send, I mean, the stores will receive the clothes anyways, right? At some point, like if
satisfied with the
yeah, no, I'm just thinking out loud that, I mean, the shop would anyway receive some clothes from the main factory, right? So if they receive only the clothes directly from the customer, from the seller in this case, and they rebrand it in loco, like in the shop, as Superga is doing with like painting the shoes, you don't need to send around like raw materials and dresses more than you would do selling new stuff. I think that's otherwise I guess that we are getting there where you were aiming with the question. But yeah, thank you so much, and fantastic. We will move now to the third presentation, which is again from UCL. And thank you so much for presenting. I will share the screen from here now. Thank you so much. And I think it's this one here, right? No, this one here.
Yeah, that one.
Okay. So reducing red meat consumption for football enthusiasts. Great. Okay. Here we are.
Cool, hello. So I think we're probably slightly terrified to go after very two well thought out and prepared groups. But yeah, we're also going to try and tackle reducing meat consumption for football enthusiasts. And I am just going to start off with really kind of giving an overview of the impact of the food system and particularly red meat consumption. Essentially not all meat is equal in terms of its carbon footprint. There's a really nice slide from Our World in Data. They present a really good kind of infographic of the kind of full complete emissions of we've just highlighted beef and lamb there, but you can see that compared to pork, and it says poultry meat, so essentially chicken, there are very, very differing levels of CO2 emissions and kind of implications for land use as well. So we've chosen to kind of focus our intervention on those two meats. So whilst also trying to kind of encourage more plant-based food as well, it's important to also kind of realize the health implications as well. So I think red meat consumption has been linked to heart disease, kind of type 2 diabetes. So there are a whole raft of health measures as well. So also we just wanted to briefly kind of talk about the kind of vast, the vast kind of network of supporters that football has. It also has a massive kind of influence on kind of societal pressure. And so, you know, those footballers and their stadiums often act as role models for lots of society. So where we've chosen to kind of weigh the intervention today isn't actually focused necessarily around the in-person stadiums, but we've gone to try and kind of pair with essentially delivery apps to try and reach a wider audience.
Cool. So why do we need an intervention? So what happened was there's a stadium which is close to London, a newly built stadium which is called Tottenham Hotspur. What happened was they tried to create a match called the net zero, the first zero carbon match. And what they did was they wanted to default all of the product sold during that match, either vegan or vegetarian. Yeah, so what happened was they received a massive backlash because people think it's a hard push. They're not giving choices and they're being forced into eating what they say not enough options. So that's why we come up with the next page, which you could see. That's why we needed a behavioral economics intervention. We need to give them options, but still try to influence them to make the right choices. So there are two things that we look into. The first one is the menu effect, where it talks about if you're given a lot of options, you tend to be confused or you tend to avoid making the choices in the first place. So how do you make the right choice more salient for them to choose? So that's the first one. And then the second one is from framing point of view. So framing is a matter of how do you actually word it out, the phrases, to incentivize them to choose or to opt for the desired outcome, and de-incentivize the one that is least preferable. So these are the two concepts that we are going to look at in general.
So along with identifying the two different non-standard behaviors that we can actually leverage, we have also identified the 4 key platforms that you can actually use to do the intervention. So there are the delivery app, supermarket deals, restaurants or bars, and also stadium stalls. But our recommendation will actually focus on delivery app because of 3 different reasons. So the first one is because of the growing number of users for delivery apps globally, not just in countries where we actually have the football matches. Because again, when we talk about net zero, we're actually talking about a global cooperation that we need to actually tackle the problems. And second is the easiness of doing the intervention, so we can easily change the UI, for example, the user interface. We can input some nudges. We can change the design. We can do a lot of different creative things using delivery app. And the most important thing is that delivery app can address 2 different audience. So the first one is the offline audience who actually watch the football match in offline in the stadium, but we can also address the audience who are watching at home. So we're actually tackling a bigger the bigger market share. So those are the 3 different reasons why we have chosen to focus on this option. However, it does not mean that our recommendation cannot be implemented in other places as well. However, just for this occasion, we have focused on the delivery app, but please bear in mind that this recommendation can also be implemented in restaurants, supermarket deals, and also stadium stalls. So the next section will focus on the visualization of what we can, our recommendation.
So our recommendation is to be part of the group and get the game deal offer. So we shortlisted top 5 different meals to address choice avoidance. So we don't have too many options and people ended up not choosing. And we make it more salient as those 5 options will be the first one to appear on the app. As you can see, there are 4 out of 5 options that are non-red meat options. And we also added a chicken option, as it was previously explained, so that in this way, the person can choose whether to opt for a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian option. And within the menu, we decided to use a framing technique to incentivize vegetable-based meal and disincentivize red meat meal. And we did this by calling the red meat meal the loser burger with beef and small cheddar, and incentivize the vegetable meal the winner burger, loaded with mushroom, cheese, and spinach. We thought this was a good combination since it's a football game, and this is prior to the game. We decided to focus on a game deal. So as this is done on an app, it can be easily targeted based on the space and the time. So we can start advertising this deal, maybe, for example, 1 day before the game or 2 days before the game, and in the city where the match will be played, or in the neighborhood that are closer to the stadium. In terms of limitations, certainly other compelling stimuli can reduce the salience effect, and it would also be quite challenging to involve restaurants and supermarkets to work on this game deal. This is starting, so the game deal would be a first step, and then based on how this would work, then one could implement it or not. Thank you very much for listening.
Oh yeah, and then one more part, the part that my colleague mentioned before is that although this is a delivery app, you could also imagine that it being implemented in other platforms as well. You could do the same at a restaurant, you could do the same at a bar where they watch together the football match, or you could also do the same in the stadium stalls as well. So it's not just limited to the delivery app only. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd also just like to tack on to the end as well. The options there aren't kind of necessarily set in stone at all, but it's more about the idea and the kind of purpose behind it. I think the neatness of a delivery app means that you could implement them quite easily, and you could also test its effectiveness quite easily. So, you could do, certain match days, 1 week and not the other. You could see, how that. So I think being able to actually measure the success of the intervention is really key to kind of, then scaling it out as well.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the audience here? I have one comment. I think that it's true that it's easily it's something that you can measure quite easily, and also controlling for different aspects that might be exogenous. One other thing that you could do perhaps is try to play around with the nudges you have applied, so disentangling a bit the effects. So this is perhaps the complete version, so the full menu, and then we have maybe focusing just on winner and loser and position, another kind of week that would also work. Thank you very much. If we don't have other questions, I would ask if we have questions from Warwick, perhaps.
Lorenzo, can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, there are no questions from the audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
So should we go ahead with the fourth presentation?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much again. Thanks. And yeah, I'll let you present that one and share the screen.
This one? This one. Yeah. It's this one. Read more. Okay. And this is mine. The other one's recharge.
You can see it.
Hi. Welcome
Hello.
to our presentation, and our solution that we're going to be talking about is called #SwapRight. So let me just take you through the process that we talk about. So our approach is to the challenge on how can we encourage and enthuse and educate students to choose sustainable clothing over one-time use clothing. So what we're going to do is we're going to identify behavioral tendencies, and then we're going to talk about how to overcome cloth bulimia, which I'll talk about in a bit. And then we'll present our solution. And finally, we'll discuss further developments and future plans. So what are the kind of behavioral tendencies that we found? So cloth bulimia is this concept that there's an unhealthy consumption of costumes. So just imagine a student has to go to a society social. They have to choose what to wear, but their instant reaction is to buy something just for the night. It's a quick thing. So for students, there's no shortage of clothes, and they kind of succumb to this idea of fast fashion. And this is because of the choice support cognitive bias. What this is we tend to overweigh the positive aspects of our options versus the negative aspects. So this tries to justify our choices, and often we succumb to choosing something that we're not going to use a second time around. So how do we overcome this? Well, for our solution, we decided to adopt the COM-B model. And what this model is, it says that interventions have to target one or two of these components in the COM-B model to result in behavioral change. So our interventions that we used look at capability and psychological capability. We increase this by providing interventions of education and incentives to change consumption habits. And we also enable people to find swapping platforms more easily. So we reduce friction in this way. We also provide them with an opportunity to be in a sustainable social atmosphere where there's a lot of modeling in play from influencers. We'll talk about that in a bit. Something else we found that was really interesting from research is that the reason people do online shopping is because they find intrinsic motivation from enjoying using the internet. So our intervention that we'll talk about in a bit actually capitalizes on this, and we developed a way that we can access it online and also in person. So we have both those aspects. But what is our target demographic? So we decided to look at students between the ages of 18 to 25 in the UK. And some of the interests that we found they have in common are an interest in sustainability, being part of an exclusive community, and developing leadership qualities so that they can put it on their resume for getting jobs later on. They also are very tech savvy and use a lot of social media platforms. And the last interest we decided was inclusivity. So being able to communicate in an inclusive community and promote engagement in this way. So next, I'm going to hand it over to Yara, who's going to talk a bit about our #SwapRight.
Thank you, Tanya. So welcome to the Swap Don't Shop community. First, in this community, we will have a social media platform in which it will focus on enablement of behavioral change, and it includes an all-accessible virtual community. We created a hashtag challenge, which is #SwapRight challenge, where participants in the community can take part of it. Second, this community will focus on will have educational purposes, which is based on using infographics, carbon footprints, and it will also be posting sustainable news on social media. For example, by using carbon footprints, people can assess their way of life and how much of Earth's resources they need to survive. This will indirectly make people aware of the potential consequences of continuous shopping. Third, the shopping process in this community is based on the swap process, in which participants in the community will be able to swap costumes or dresses. They will have to give up a costume in exchange for another from any participant involved in that community. Fourth, the community will have a reward system and it will collaborate with influencers. This community will give rewards to participants, and also participants will be able to be given exclusive content from influencers once they participate in the #SwapRight challenge. In this category, we are trying to incentivize people to engage in this community by giving out coffee and food coupons, and also by using influencers, we are helping them model this behavior. So how does this work? To be able to enter this community, you will have to give up a dress in exchange of another. The dress material needs to be preferably environmentally friendly and sustainable. The community has a website, and this website is associated with societies across universities in the UK. The societies will partner with influencers to promote the community. For example, many universities in the UK have a sustainable society. So this could be as an example. Then on the website, you will be able to pick a dress or a costume, then locate a pickup point, which would be on the campus of the university. Then when you receive the dress or the costume, you can post a picture in it while using the #SwapRight to enter the challenge. And then to enter the challenge and receive exclusive content and access to the community. After you finish from wearing the costume or the dress, you can leave a review and you could get a reward like the food and drink coupon. So what are the future plans of this community? First, we aim to collab with sustainable marketplaces like Vinted. This sustainable marketplace can help generate an app. Second, to have macro influencers to join the community, which will help increase social influence. Third, to organize DIY events. We make accessories from eco-friendly clothing that no longer meet standards. Fourth, we make more advertising like ads, posters, and stickers on campuses. For example, we could add stickers for like the QR code of the community. We could locate them in laundry rooms or the grocery store near campuses. We could also add posters about the facts for reducing the carbon footprints. Fifth point would be we would aim to have workshops with guest appearances from influencers, businesses, and also alumni connections. And finally, we would give out quarterly progress updates for the members of the community on their impact. Thank you very much. These are the members of the team. And if you have any questions, let us know.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Do we have any questions from here? Yeah.
Hi, thanks so much for your presentation. Especially love the idea of giving people feedback on their progress, sorry. I just have two quick questions. The first was around the phrase cloth bulimia. And is it like an original phrase that you'd come up with, or was that also from the research? Sorry, I didn't quite get that.
Yeah, sure. So we actually researched this and we found that this is actually a term that's online and it's been circulated in research a lot. But yeah, no one's tried to overcome this phrase as such. So we thought of using it and seeing how we could kind of counteract these behavioral tendencies.
Thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, I hadn't heard of it before. And then the other question I had was, so you've outlined quite a few different ways that you're kind of get people to hear about the platform. What are some potential barriers that you anticipate in terms of setting this up and getting people to actually take those initial steps. I particularly wanted to focus on, you mentioned you're requiring people to take photo, which they can post to then get extra rewards. Do you think, I'd just like to hear what barriers do you think there might be to that and using the platform in general?
Yeah, so I think the first step is partnering with societies, because I think a lot of students hear things from word of mouth. And what we thought of is like in a freshers fair, for example, if they publicize the fact that we have this sort of platform where they can get a costume for, say, like, for example, if a society has a social coming up for Halloween or Christmas or something like that, they can say that, oh, do you have a costume yet? If not, you can get one from this community. And in such, they can enter the community. And I think the barriers that they might face would be, one, figuring out how to pick it up from a pickup point. But I think that also can be overcome by the fact that students are involved as volunteers. So you're not like talking to someone else. You're not going somewhere to pick up the swapped item. You're on campus and that's easily accessible. So yeah, I think the potential downfalls can be overcome in this way.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I would also like to add, like, for example, if the barrier is to post a pic, we created this hashtag for them to incentivize them to participate in this challenge, and also getting along like influencers to collaborate with this challenge would help participants to post, and it would hopefully not be a barrier for them.
Thank you so much. Just another question from here.
Hello, thank you so much for your presentation. I had a question about the fact that you envisaged your community to start with sustainable fabrics only, and why you've chosen to go down that route, because it doesn't really meet a lot of people where they are, and would this in fact create an in-group of people who only are interested in sustainable fashion and then exclude people who do participate in fast fashion from this group because they feel like they would not have any sustainable fabric clothing?
Okay, thank you for your question. I mentioned that it is preferable to have the material to be sustainable and environmentally friendly, but it doesn't have to be. But the whole aim of this community is to promote sustainability. So it will encourage people to join if they care about climate change or sustainability for the environment. It doesn't have to be, but it's preferable because this is the aim of the community.
Yeah, just to add on Yara's point, the clothes that are being swapped don't have to be sustainable, but the person who will be undergoing the checks for if they meet the standard, which is, it doesn't have to be 100% sustainable, but it has to be good quality. And yeah, so that would be carried out by volunteers who are in the societies and are facilitating the pickup process. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks. So once again, thanks for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we are ready for the last presentation of the day. Just before starting, I would suggest what we can say what will happen later afterwards. So I would suggest after the last presentation, we could have perhaps a picture here with all the participants that are still here, and then a picture from Warwick to have like a good memory. Then the panel will reunite to decide the winner group. And yeah, so we have 5 people of the panel here, and I will put Laurie with via speaker. So we will not be streaming for like 5 minutes, and we will just put together all the ideas, and then we will announce the winner straight after. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, we are ready to see the 5th presentation.
Yeah, I'll share the presentation. Who's presenting? Okay. Well, I'll share the presentation and then, yes. Can we just wait for a couple of minutes Lorenzo.
Yes.
As the student is just outside the room, it's coming back in a moment.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Is this a game? Is that
it
you,
looks
Laurie?
like.
So it's also nice the fact that you have 2 presentations on one topic and 3 on the other. So we covered quite extensively two topics.
So the student is back. Take your time, don't worry, it's okay. Are you ready? Yeah. Okay, so Lorenzo, we can start with the final presentation.
Great. Okay.
Hi, sorry everyone. So good evening. Wait. Oh.
We can hear you well.
Oh, okay, cool. Good evening, everyone. We're from Warwick, and Priya and I will be presenting the first challenge, which is how to inspire football fans and their families to eat more plant-based meals and less meat and dairy products. So, oh, why is it not moving? Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So we have found a study which was run by a Brazilian plant-based food company called Future Farm. So they ran a study among over 2,000 UK respondents. So they were all football fans, and their data show here that there is actually quite a large proportion of plant-based eaters that exist among the football fans of different teams. But we can see here in the pictograph that there is still quite a great variation between teams. How, let's say, at the top of the chart, Arsenal fans, up to 42% of them actually are plant-based eaters, and they have become plant-based eaters only during the pandemic. But if you can see down the pictograph, only 20% of Tottenham Hotspur football fans have turned into plant-based eaters. So it's still quite a big concern, because meat consumption itself has a lot of impacts, not only on individuals, but actually on the environment. So for example, deforestation is actually, agriculture and livestock production is actually the major source of deforestation, because in order to carry out more intensive farming and have more land for cattle ranching, producers and manufacturers have been kind of obliged to actually expand their land use. So this has reduced the forest areas and also increased the methane production into the atmosphere. And this is kind of unavoidable, because cattle ranching releases methane through digestive process of the ruminants and sheep. So here we want to address this issue. Using the COMBI framework, in order to increase consumption of plant-based food, we have come up with some potential barriers that might have prevented or obstructed people from consuming more plant-based food. For capabilities, we thought awareness was one of the very important issues, because people might not be fully aware of what options they have got. For example, meat versus plant-based food. Meat might be more salient in supermarkets, but plant-based food might be in a really tiny section. And attention span, like, do those plant-based food products actually grab people's attention well? I'm sorry. In terms of opportunities, are prompts in the environment actually sufficient to attract people? For example, meat might be on better offers than plant-based food. Therefore, people will go for better prices instead of just buying something more expensive. And do they actually have role models, their families, their colleagues, friends? Are they actually following the same diet? Are people around them actually eating more plant-based food rather than meat or other types of food? social and cultural norms are also really important. We know that in the UK here, meat has long been in the history how it represents strength and power, and especially among men, like there's been research to show that they view it as a symbol of Britishness as well as strength and power. And last but not least, a motivation. How do people actually see themselves? Because some people actually think that the food they eat can also symbolize how they are as a person. And how do they feel about it, their emotions of eating plant-based food versus just meat, or habits. A lot of people here in the UK as well as globally, eating protein or having protein from meat has become like a habit of how they eat in a meal, and how they believe about consequences that their food consumption might have is also important in this case. So a nudge that we've come up with is a collaboration with Corn, which is a plant-based food company, but this nudge could actually be applied to any other plant-based food company in the UK. So the idea here is to actually gamify people's experience. We would love to actually include a QR code on every Quan's plant-based product packaging in order for people to scan this QR code and earn points. And these points will be used to compete in what a game called Fantasy Football League, and Priya will be explaining how the game works. So yeah, the fans will be able to self-select, and I'll hand this over to Priya to explain more how the game works.
Thank you. So basically, fantasy football is an online game where the person who is playing the game acts as the manager of their ideal fantasy football team. And what they basically do is select their fantasy football team on paper. So the team has to be comprised similar to how football teams are created in real life. And what's fun is that they can choose all of their favorite players, so they don't necessarily have to be from the same team. And we thought that linking this with league matches would actually bring an element of fun into something which is a very daily habit forming thing of eating and choosing food products to eat. And this could be that extra incentive that gets people to have plant-based instead of regular meat probably. So the idea is that there's a constant engagement with your expectations of match outcomes on how the team's performance is going to be like or who you're supporting. And that's going to create some prediction error in your brain. And we know that prediction error is encoded. Studies have shown that prediction error is typically encoded in dopamine receptors in the brain. And so maybe eating a plant-based meal and playing this game would create some expectations, generate some dopamine, hopefully get that feeling of reward going and induce people to eat more. The other thing that we wanted to do was make this a shared experience. So if you eat a plant-based meal with friends and family, you can invite them to play this game too. In fact, there would be optionality to combine points and make a joint team with your friends and family to compete against other teams, and then get small rewards for the team reaching milestones. And because the performance of the team on paper is linked with the actual performance during the league games, it's an incentive for everyone to sit and watch the match together and see how their teams are going and see if they can win prizes. And so again, the more plant-based food you eat, the more points you get, the more engagement you can have with the fantasy football game and engage in reinforcement learning type behavior. And then as incentive to play the game, because it's not going to be fun unless there are prizes, right? So we could give them things like match tickets, FIFA games, maybe some merchandise, and constantly giving them small positive feedback reinforcement loops would be something that would keep people engaged, because waiting till the end of the season would lead to problems associated with hyperbolic discounting. So instead of giving a big prize at the end, maybe give some smaller prizes while they're playing the game to keep them engaged. The other thing in collaboration with this would be to increase salience of the main message itself. So the two main messages that Rang highlighted earlier, that the benefits of eating plant-based and the environmental impact of meat products could be communicated
to people as they engage with the content on social media, on print advertising if possible, and some in-store advertising where quant products are placed. And also some hashtags and challenges for how their team is doing, how their fantasy football club is doing, how other football clubs that they're competing with, are they winning, are they losing, create some sort of trend setting. And also because this is an activity that they'll be doing hopefully with their friends and family, there would be a relevant reference group that they could work with, and also have elements of social comparison and social norm nudging type behavior. The other incentive or the other positive reinforcement feedback loop that we wanted to give them was to put pictures of cute animals on the packaging of plant-based products and tell them thanks for saving an animal or for not consuming an animal, and give them that extra bit of incentive or thanks to eating plant-based products, and create some sort of cognitive dissonance where we're telling them that, hey, you bought this plant-based meal and it's actually a good thing, and maybe you should buy it again. So in summary, we want to make this experience fun and make it repetitive, which is why there are multiple iterations. And if it's linked with the seasons of an ongoing tournament, hopefully it could be something repetitive that you do with your family and friends and make it a social thing. And then we want to give them some additional boosting through the packaging of the product itself and messages on increasing awareness by promoting plant-based eating. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, any
Thank you
questions?
so much. Do we have any questions from here? We have a couple. I don't know from Warwick, but.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering that if you're targeting corn, I was just thinking that those potentially could be, people that would already be selecting plant-based options, and was just, we're just wondering if that would hit the kind of necessary target audience.
That's a great question. So there would be some people who would be having corn products, but the hope is to get non-users of corn to try the products by giving them an extra incentive of the football game. Because typically these sort of behaviors might be associated with emotions, like having popcorn in a movie theater or eating a burger while watching a match. So we were hoping that the game would give them an extra incentive to try the product. I don't know if that answers your question.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. Last question. Comment.
Yeah, it's a comment and a question building on what you just said, actually. I was wondering, firstly, great presentation, and you've obviously thought about this a lot. The area I was wondering for maybe a bit of a comment was around the actual experience of eating the food and preparing the food, because it seems like there's obviously an emphasis on it being a shared experience when playing the game and watching the game. And I was just wondering how, or if you have any thoughts on how you might bring a bit more of a focus to the experience of like trying the food for the first time, eating it together, and how you might then use kind of social norming to build on that.
So sorry, could you repeat the last bit? Is it about building a social experience while preparing the food?
Well, yeah, just more if you had any thoughts whilst preparing this presentation and obviously researching around the whole eating and preparing food side, because obviously that's a big part of this user, buying the corn product and then as well as scanning it and getting the points, they'll be eating it, and maybe that'll be a shared experience. So are there any thoughts around how you can make that something that's shared and visual? I just wondered if this has you'd kind of come across this idea when building out this.
It's interesting. I mean, food is a social experience for a lot of us, right? We eat meals with our family, we eat meals with our friends, especially on something like match days where we all want to sit together and have something while watching the match on TV. So it would be again, something as could be portrayed as a shared activity on social media where, you sort of play the game together and watch the game together and then eat the food together. So you make similar food choices. And if someone's selecting a quant product, maybe the person going shopping with them, or maybe they buy the product for all of the people watching the match with them so that they can enjoy the experience together. So that would again be something that would have to be woven in the social media story and the marketing that goes along with this incentive.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other questions?
So we have a question from Warwick.
Fantastic. Go ahead.
Yeah, just give it to him. There you go.
Yeah, my question is about your target audience, because when I first saw the question, I thought football fans as a whole should have similar characters, should have similar decisions when it comes to vegan food. But from your slides, I noticed that different teams actually show very significant decisions pattern when it comes to choosing vegan/veggie food. Do you have a hypothesis, or did you find anything interesting about this difference?
So yeah, I think so. I was doing research on this, and that was actually really limited research on how eating behaviors are among football fans. And in terms of the variation that we found in the picture graph, I was hypothesizing that one of the factors might be the geography of where the stadiums were actually located. For example, sorry, I'll just go back to the very first slide. So if you see here, so the fourth team is actually Leeds United Football Club versus Arsenal, which is in London. Like London has all sorts of food, but Leeds is actually up north. And although it's a really big city, but there might be more limited resources in terms of food and how different plant-based food companies distribute their stocks. So I would hypothesize that teams like, for example, Arsenal in London or Manchester United in Manchester, they might have an easier access to plant-based food compared to smaller cities that also have football clubs, but might not have as much access as these teams or like football fans do. Yeah. Thank you.
We still have an outlier, Tottenham. We don't know what's wrong with Tottenham supporters here.
They're evil, that's right.
Yeah, maybe something, I don't know, cultural or.
Sorry.
We have a Korean player and Korean culture is very big.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't know.
Okay, yeah. So how would you account for these differences, knowing that they might not have access to the same amount of variety in foods? Especially in like the, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. Did you hear the question just now?
We didn't.
Oh, so someone from Warwick was asking how would we like counteract the differences between the teams, that how the football fans might have different levels of access to plant-based food. So one suggestion for me might be to actually utilize what we were talking about, social media, because I think nowadays, especially in the UK as a developed country, social media is really accessible to everyone. Therefore, we could also collaborate with some famous or like popular football players to promote more of plant-based food consumption. Therefore, I think as football fans, people have different favorite players, and if we could actually penetrate through the markets and ask them and collaborate with them to promote this type of consumption, people will start looking for more plant-based food. And although there might be limited resources in their area, I think people will be more encouraged to actually look for this type of food because their role models actually follow this plan of diet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So thanks again for the presentation. Thank you, of course, to all the groups that came this evening. Thank you for all the presentations. So I would suggest, Laurie, should we, perhaps we are taking a picture here and then we are like sitting in a corner to decide things and I will call you. Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll have a picture with the students here, and then I go outside, and so feel free to call me when you're ready.
Yeah, yeah. And for the once following via YouTube, I would say it's 10 minutes without like contents, let's say, and then in 10 minutes time we will announce the winner. So if you want to stay like for 10 minutes more, we will tell you more. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks so much. Yeah, only present. Yeah, I'll come. Okay, here we are. Can you hear us? All right, they are on mute. Okay. So, are you there, Warwick? Can you hear us? Put your hand. No. On mute. Okay. So I will take it as a yes. So what we did basically, thanks for staying. We have 5 groups. So remember the ordering of the groups. We started with one presentation in group in UCL, then one Warwick, then one UCL, and then 2 Warwick. So first of all, all the members of the panel, so we have 6 members, we put the 2 favorite groups after like talking and discussing the feedback. The funny thing is that after doing that, all the groups were equal. So it was a very, very close call. Everyone did very well. So we decided to put our third favorite, in the votes. So to create a bit of heterogeneity. And we decided also to award 2 groups. So just to remember, like we have some awards from Hubbub, and I mean, do you want to say something more about the awards?
Oops. I broke it. Does this work? It kind of does. It's very reverberating. I just dropped the mic, everyone. I'm really sorry. Yeah, so we're happy to write LinkedIn references for the winning groups, just to comment on what you did really well in the presentations, and thank you for your ideas. We'll also invite the top 2 teams to Somerset House to present to the project teams we have working on these ideas. And if you are working on fashion, there's the opportunity to help us write our World Book Day blog post, so you can also refer to that if you want to, put on some funny costumes about book characters.
Thank you so much. And just to add that, Laurie and I are presenting at the conference very soon, right, Laurie? So one idea could be to invite perhaps a representative for the groups to join the conference with us if we are approved with that with the organizer. So not to lose more time, I would like to announce the 2 winners. So we have from Warwick, group 5. Well done. So it was the last group presenting, just to remember. And then we have from UCL, group 3. So very well done. And again, everyone did a great job. We really had to find details to find the winners. So thank you so much. Thank you for everyone that stayed on YouTube watching us as well. And have a nice week, have a nice evening, sorry. Bye-bye. Thanks for Warwick, and thanks, Laurie, to join, and all your students. Congratulations. Yeah, I don't think we cannot hear you. I don't know why.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now yes.
Okay, no, just wanted to thank you for having us, and thanks everyone for participating in this behavioral marathon. It's been great, guys, to work with you, and thanks Lorenzo for having us again. Bye. Have a good
pleasure.
evening.
Thanks for participating. Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye.
And thanks to our friends from Hubbub to join and to bring such interesting topics and of course for like all the support to our students in the past, in the present and future. So thank you so much. Thank you. Bye. Thanks.